Hey Tamar, great to have you on the show. Itamar is CEO of Codium AI, where they have more than 500,000 users and more than 10K stars in open source. Itamar, great to have you on the show. How about if you intro yourself?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you very much for hosting me. I'm happy to share from my experience and have a nice conversation about thought leadership, etc. Really short about myself. I was twice CTO of VC-backed startup, including one exit. Now challenging myself as a co-founder and CEO. For some reason, I'm enjoying being the CEO, although having a more technical background and experience. Um, yeah, in my past, really for a long time ago, I also worked on and chip and system verification. So I have like a background in quality assurance, etc. And today at Codium AI, I kind of mix two of my biggest love, which is machine learning and code quality verification, etc. I did a master degree in the Technion and machine learning. Yeah, and what we do at Coding AI is, on one hand, we're yet another AI coding assistant, but we're much more focused on code review and code testing. That actually brought us to build a complete platform, not just an IDE plugin in your IDE, but rather also like a Git plugin and other tools that work together with a centralized system that scans code bases and make the other tool that I talked about having better accuracy and context.
I know that's super important for coders, and I know there's always talks about which tools to use and the latest model that can be the best at things. So I was previously a coder myself, so interesting to compare those tools. It seems like you're gaining a lot of traction, and we talked offline about founder-led marketing. I've seen some posts of yours on LinkedIn. We see that video is catching on quite a lot. I see that you started as well, and I like that a lot. Um, what would you say is the importance of doing such activities as a founder? Have you seen the needle move yourself?
Yeah, it does move the needle a lot. And before I talk about the importance, if I may, I want to talk about how embarrassing it is to do that, because maybe that people could relate, maybe the people that are listening to us. So first of all, like for example, yes, you're right. Like I just released in the last 2 weeks, I think, like two video posts where I'm recording myself talking about some topics that I care about. And I have to say, it's really embarrassing. Like at least when I look at myself, videoing myself and then posting it, and like, you know, why should I do that? Like, why should I put myself in public? And by the way, like with a technical background, I think some of us, so like maybe I'm inaccurate, and I'm going to put that inaccuracy in the public, and people might catch me. Like maybe I need to do like a lot of background checks before I make. And then like it's not just being embarrassed is one thing that might hold you off, but actually the fact that you want it to be very good. For example, if you wrote a research paper, you work a lot on like almost every, like your story, your abstract, your intro, your how things, like your visuals, like everything are well thought. You probably even like redid it like a few times. And here you won't be able to do, if you want to keep doing that consistently, like a thought leadership, etc. You need to allow yourself to relax if sometimes you might not be 100% accurate, or actually you might simplify something in order to serve a notion or idea more simply, and because of that it's not 100% accurate. So the first thing I want to say before talking about the importance is, like, I want to share, I'm not sure I did it like publicly, that it's not that easy to do, like mentally, and especially if you have probably a technical background, but I still think it's very important. And I'll answer why is because I think that basically when you're starting as a young startup, uh, people, yeah, they might want to buy your product because it's superior, it's better, probably in a certain niche. Like for us, it's like code review, for example. We're really good like in that. Uh, we like that specific open source, the PR agent, have 5,000 stars, and we have a pro version with thousands of the companies, including Fortune 100 and Fortune 500, using it. But still, like still like it's coming from a young startup, and who are they? Why should I trust them? Right? And then when they see like the CEO specifically, but it could be like it's a good, it's the CEO in my opinion, but it could be someone else. from the company with sharing interesting thoughts, like sharing leading thoughts, and being recognized by the industry about these thoughts, getting those likes and reshares and people talking about it, being knowledgeable about your field, your product, but also like adjacent field, etc. This gives confidence to your user and especially for the buyer that okay, this is a serious company, serious people behind it. By the way, I'm doing like a bit, maybe it could be a mistake. Like I'm kind of not serious. Like I'm trying to be lightweighted. It's a bit counterintuitive or counterfeit to what I'm saying, that they want to see you're serious. So, but that's another point. But basically, that's the number one reason that you're a young startup. You're trying to build your reputation, and that's a very strong way. It's like getting stars in GitHub, right? Or getting installs, getting recognition. The other point, the second one, there are more, but I just want to don't know it's too long, is that eventually, if your content is catching, and we might talk about it a bit later, it's actually really hard to get to that point, and the path also could be a bit embarrassing. Then you get more eyeballs, and you get more people like users or clients like trying your product. So that's a second, and sometimes it's even more effective than other things that you can might find, like even buying AdWords on Google might actually even more effective this way.
I completely connect to what you're saying. And I think a lot of startups don't understand how important it is to have some form of brand. And it's all about content these days, right? So just going into a website of some random startup and not actually knowing the people behind the scenes or how good they are at what they do, and then just hitting that buy button, I think is a lot harder compared to someone that I follow and get to see every day. Like, this guy seems like he knows what he's talking about and that he's trustworthy. And then I buy from him. It seems like they're talking about a change with the buyer's journey, that it's going to be a lot more like scrolling through TikTok for a few months or shorts or whatnot, and then you make the purchase, compared to you used to go to trade shows, in the 90s or whatnot, and you would compare a few companies and make a decision. But today it doesn't work like that anymore. So I completely relate to what you're saying. Have you noticed an impact from the activities that you've done until now?
Yeah, totally. Um, just being a bit fun in this conversation. I'm not saying we're not fun so far, but if I throw at myself like 15 years ahead, I'm maybe saying science fiction stuff, and it's like one prediction of the future. It might be what you said, even more important. It might be that because the cost of generating software or generating everything might go down, right? Because of AI. Actually, what might be the most important is the audience and building the audience. So like it might be that in 15 years that the richest, like it doesn't matter like direct implement like meaning of what I said, the word rich, but the richest people might be the people that have the biggest audience, like that following them and trusting what they're saying, and they can maybe with a click of a button build an entire software that that their audience want, right? So like might be exaggeration, but just food for thought. um yes, I'll give you one concrete example, but there's actually plenty. One that maybe that's not trivial, so that we'll start with that. So at the beginning of 2024, it's where we basically kind of started our monetization. Uh, Earlier than that, we were very, very focused on our bottom-up motion, building our traction with the open source and free tools, etc., and practically making our software better with tens of thousands of back then of active users. It's much easier this way to perfectionize or increasing the quality of your product. And then when we started like being active with prospects, I noticed very clearly how when I connect in LinkedIn with the prospect, and then they notice my content, they actually raise and talk about it in our conversation. They might like relate to it, and B, how there is a strong correlation between them answering my email to the day I post something interesting on LinkedIn. It could be that they're not answering for a month, and then I post something interesting, and then they immediately answer the same day. Just an example. I'm talking about the really early days, and that's the meaning on here of this podcast, right? Talk about the first client or the first 10, and now we're beyond that. But that was really meaningful in the beginning. So this is like just very concrete, and yes, we like being. And then there's the more trivial thing that yes, if a post of yours like is catching, it might not necessarily bring a lot more of users. Like it does. It's not that one post like will create tens of thousands of downloads. Maybe in Hacker News, but not in LinkedIn or Twitter, and especially not on LinkedIn, in my opinion. But but it might actually bring a few prospects, and we saw that like interesting post or a set of interesting posts on LinkedIn, like bringing prospect. And again, the reason to match it is by them if they mention your post on LinkedIn, so you know it's at least if it didn't came from them, at least it influenced. But in some cases, we know actually it even came from these sharings.
Nice. I can say that I've felt similar things in the past where, more content posting out there, and someone told me on camera, I feel like I already know you in some form of or the other. So I do like that it's kind of like it's almost like going to a conference, right? When you build yourself on LinkedIn, people know you can DM them. That's like the private messages, and then like posting is like being on stage.
Yeah.
uh yeah, so I think that it's really interesting. The challenge, I think, though, in the marketing world many times is attribution. Like, you say that there is some form of correlation, but sometimes it can be hard to prove it, right? Like, how do you know
Yeah.
it was actually that post that caused them to reply in the email? But you do get a feel, so I can definitely connect to that. So now we talked about the impact. Let's help other founders get started, right? So I know you said for you it was tricky at the beginning, and it's still hard for you. So how do you overcome that challenge? How do you break through those walls?
Right. So um, there's a few things need to be done, at least from my end. I'll start with two. So first is picking what you want to talk about. Um, because if you do pick, I think it's like reduces a bit the mental load of building your expectation with yourself, and that helps with some tips that I'm going to share. Okay, so let me clarify it. So for example, pick a main topic that you think you would like to talk about, and then maybe one or not more than two, in my opinion, like subtopics or additional subtopics. For example, for me, it's the main topic is like AI, and specifically AI and software development. And then the subtopics, for example, could be like general management, startup management, and etc. And by the way, like maybe a growing subtopic is like thought leadership, and that's the reason I'm here. And and like one of the reasons is because once you do choose these topics, it's become easier for you to get used to talk about them. I didn't with so I hope it's okay sharing. I didn't like prepare myself for this pod, while I might have need to do that if it's the first time I'm like thinking or talking about something. So the first thing like needs to be done is to choose those topics and subtopics. And now the thing is that if you choose those, they're something that you're like topics that you're already either working on, thinking about, learning about, etc., then actually like this is where how you can make it easier to do the first few steps, and also very important to persevere, to continue, and like not stop, because it's very important to start but not stop. It's almost like a waste to do it like very small amount of time and then stopping with it. So that's my number one, like choose your topics that are somehow related to what you were doing anyway. And then the second thing is like trying to find the processes, and then like if you like me, I'll also like give a specific tips or tricks about both of these suggestion. Okay, like I'm not concrete right now. So the second is like about finding the processes. It's not about like just, oh, I have an idea and I'm going to write about it, because you might not find a time to do that, and also it not might be continuous enough or consistent enough. So finding the processes and how you can do that. So and again, aligning these processes with your work. So these are the main two things that I suggest to get starting and to get started, and also continuously doing that. And I love to share like specific tips and tricks.
So, what about any other barriers? You know, like the first time sharing yourself on LinkedIn in video. Do you have any fear? Is it embarrassing? And if so, how do you get over that?
Yeah. So I think that's related to what I suggested in the beginning, is that my biggest, like my biggest, let's say, barriers were um, the embarrassment and the, the fact that a mindset that something that is not 95% sure, and or I'm it's, by the way, sure in its accuracy, or sure in its like that I'm sure it's going to be interesting for the audience, then don't share it. And embarrassing, and that like kind of prevents me like doing anything. By the way, just to make sure, I'm not saying that uh, you don't want your content to be inaccurate. You need it to be as accurate as possible. You need it to be interesting as possible. You need it to be engaging as possible. The thing is that if you try to perfectionize for that, you probably won't do anything. And then you need the processes to enable you to verify accuracy and interest, like being interesting, and like etc., and being less embarrassing, etc., without, by the way, getting perfection. But you need to find the process, and that's related to my second. And now let me give you an example. Okay, uh, it's also how I started, so it's related to your question. So you have already like probably a small audience, which is your company, your people in the company. You can use that. For example, probably once in a while, you're taking something that you found interesting, a topic that you thought about, a topic that you read, or a topic that that someone in the team worked on, and you kind of gave your own opinion on it, and you probably shared it internally. By the way, you probably, even when you share it internally, you try to make it something good, because you don't want to lose face in front of your company. But my guess is that you didn't try to perfectionize it. Take that piece of content and notice, did it embarrass you in front of your team? Did it like did it interest them? Did they respond to it? Did it create some discussion, etc.? If there is positive indication, you can probably just spend 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes, and then share it like on stage, like you mentioned, on LinkedIn. And then when you have this process in mind, that you actually can try to like double click on it, like double down on it. For example, one of the things that I do, if someone in the team shared, not myself, someone in the team shared something, and I find it engaging, I'm kind of responding to that person, and then I'm trying to encourage that person to post. But if that person doesn't want to, and usually I really try, like literally today, I'm trying to convince one of my team members to react to the Twitter, because he did some amazing work, etc. But if that person didn't want to, then I'm taking it and sharing it. And if that person did it, I'm still like kind of resharing, or giving my own like point of view, and of course sharing back, like relating to that person. Um, one of the ways to wrapping up to your, like a shorter answer to your question, is like um, practicing on your own team. It might be still be embarrassing, might still like take time, might still like have the blockers, etc., but maybe less. And then use that process that you got used to actually continue that to curate those like piece of content that seems getting engagement in your team, and then use those to share online.
I like that a lot. It's almost like a continuous feedback loop. If we think about coding, right, you could start on your local dev environment, then staging, and if it's good, then you reach production.
Yeah,
Uh, Plus, it involves qualitative and quantitative feedback. So I like thinking about it in that way. How about types of content? So you mentioned you have like a few pillars or a few topics that you talk about. In your mind, do you think there's a difference between I'm going to talk about productivity or thought leadership in general compared to I'm going to focus on specific problems that I think Codium's prospects have? And then it's more likely that my audience will convert better because I'm talking about things that relate to solutions that I can provide.
yeah. That's a tricky question, like about answer. I think it's a good one. But just to tell you, I think what you said about the feedback loop is like critical. I didn't put enough emphasis, but you're right. Like the fact that I'm sharing internally, the team also, if they do respond, it shows interesting. Sometimes they find the inaccuracy in something that I wrote. And then like you when you post, like you already did that process. Okay, great. So um so I think that basically, look,
By the way,
here's
it
the
doesn't, if
yeah,
I can cut you off, it doesn't have to be bad. Like some people say it's great to be controversial on social. So if you make a mistake and then you get like 100 comments saying
yeah,
that
I
you're
know.
an idiot,
I know what
it's
you mean, but at like I won't think it will solve the blocker for some of the people. Like I think that's an advanced feature. At the point that you have enough confidence and people know that you're like already 90% accurate. If you got a mistake once, it's fine. And then like you're saying, okay, sometimes if I do a mistake, it actually creates like people reacting to you, etc. But I'm not sure it's a good feedback or a good point to like how to start with. I'm not sure even, by the way, what I'm suggesting, but just from my personal perspective, I wouldn't want to start this. Sorry, if I knew that this what would start my path, which I still am thinking in the beginning, I'd probably be afraid to start it. You know, hey, I'll throw something like intentionally a mistake, or intentionally knowing that it could be a mistake, and that could gather like the traction. Today, I know that it might happen and actually could be a good thing, but I'm also like already confident that people thought that I'm not doing that just for the sake. Okay, you got my point. And so basically, I would say like it's a tricky question, but the answer is like it's there. It's like straightforward. That on one hand, uh, like you can't talk on your solution all the time. Sorry, that's not interesting unless you're Chat GPT. Okay, um, like it's not interesting. Like just to talk about your solution. On the other hand, you do want to create content.
let me clarify, not your solution, the pains that that a prospect could relate to, right? So if
Yeah, yeah,
Codium
yeah,
is helping with code reviews, you could say, oh man, you know, I've been wasting 10 hours a day doing A, B, and C. Here are three methods that can help you shorten that without mentioning your tool.
yeah. I got you from it. First, I totally agree. Like I'm taking it to the extreme intentionally. Okay, so on one hand, like you want to talk about your solutions. You wish you could talk about your solution, and you know, by the way, also your specific pain, probably at a startup you're solving specific pain in that solution, and that all the world would want to hear and use it. That's but you can't. It won't work. And by the way, it's probably quite boring. And usually, if you're solving something really boring, it's a good thing, right? And uh, now let's take the other extreme. Talk about like everything that is like interesting people, like, and the most common ground for people. And I think that this is not a bad idea, but you'll probably be competing against people that it's all they do. That's their job. They're influencer in the most common like AI, you know. Usually, if I see founders succeed with that, usually it's one of two ways. Either they're not yet founders and they're building themselves, and they have the time to invest in it all day because they know it's their, like, from some reason they're second timers, or the importance of what we're talking right now. So a year before, Yeah, I even have one name, but I'm not sure like if it's the right thing to mention. Like a year before they start working on that, and then you actually it's a good thing to start with the most common ground, like just AI in general. But if you don't have the time, you're probably busy with other things. You need to narrow down, and then like we said, on one hand, like narrow down could be only your solution, and that's not good enough. And then like what's there in the middle? So I think a bit less than something generic is talking about generally, but more specific on your field. For example, if I'm a cloud observability, I'm talking about like anything cloud observability, or I'm in like AI assistant for developers, so anything AI assistant for developer. But it's more a niche than AI in general. And by the way, specifically, and by the way, one of the videos that you mentioned that I just shared was about a critic model of OpenAI. Sorry, a critic for code. OpenAI like released some research work about a model that is a critic about quality of code. Okay, I talked about it because it's in the AI realm of for software development, etc. Okay, so that's like it's still very broad, and then like, but that's I think where you should start. Like that's the most broad that you should think of, and then uh, more being more specific is like you mentioned, like talking about like pains and things that are more related to your solution, closer to your solution, but still like generic. Talking about like how things could like uh, evidence of research or news that helps to shape the future of your solution, for example, without talking about your solution. Evidence and news talking about the pains that are related to your solution without talking about your solution. Yes, definitely. I think that these are this is the boundary. And then when you have this boundary and you're talking about it once in a while, you can talk even about your solution. But I don't have like the best like I'm not experienced enough, but I would say like 1 out of 10 posts, not more. It could be on actually your solution. I think, by the way, that I'm in one out of five, and that's too much right now.
Let's talk about, let's say founders understand, they understand it. Let's come up with a tactical game plan. So, for, founder never did this before, and we want to create a gym program for them in a way that they can stay consistent. What would you tell them?
Yeah, great. So I started giving the tips and tricks, and now the first tip was um, practice with by sharing something in your team and trying not to be not embarrassed, like at least with your team, etc., so you can do it quickly. Okay, and then we talk to related tricks and tips. Okay, the other one is that in advance, you need to have 1 or 2 events a week that you know that you would do anyway, and you would change your mindset that these events could be the base for creating content. For example, I'm reading once a week uh, a blog or a paper or something interesting in this like a cluster of type of media that I'll probably read more than just the title. I'll probably read the abstract, etc. Sorry, more than abstract and title. I'll probably read the entire like paper or entire blog and think about it deeply. And then the mindset you need to change. Okay, if I'm doing that anyway, let's write down what do I think about it and share it with the team. Okay. And by the way, the amazing thing about this is that I think this job is required anyway. As a visionary, as a CEO, you need to have opinions about things. You need to be thoughtful about things. So I actually find that this process is useful anyway. Okay, so that's like a tip, like number one. Another one is like, and then by the way, I'm trying to give like tips and tricks that are related to each other, so you can bundle them eventually. Do them. So another tip and trick is like, notice if there is a repeating topic that you're discussing with your team, and that kind of starting to create some, or starting to create some content, and then just double down and write some summary out of it. Let me give you an example from today in my team that I'll probably write something about it. So remember one of my subtopics, like management, product management, company management. Like I really feel that entrepreneurs and we need to be strong on these. So we talked about today about like design patterns. Like there are various books, inspired, empowered, and other like tools that are like product management, specifically as topics of design patterns, design uh, processes, etc. And we want to like improve ours, and we want to like think about what is our, and then I want to be opinionated and say, hey, eventually I think like when we're thinking about a product that are like this, and here are two common ones, but I think they're bad because A, B, or they're missing, and here's like another option how to do that, and here it's supposed to like could be actually one, sometimes these posts are more catching more than the AI ones. Okay, like I have to say, like in the past year, look, I wrote something about PLG, and like I don't know, like was like a moment that people cared about that a lot. Okay, so these are like two things. Like how do you take your day to day and or week to week, maybe more accurately, work and try to make this thought leadership part of it, because otherwise you won't be able to be consistent. So I gave an example of something that you already do that involve some reading and content, and just change your mindset that you at the end it finishes not with a thought, it finishes with a summary that you share. And the second thing, like notice topic that you're doing anywhere in the company that are shareable, that it's not secrets, and think how you output your summary as well to the team, in order eventually to take it outside. So that's my main tips, and there are many others, of course, but to elaborate.
What about creating a schedule or a content calendar in order to be consistent? Do you have any spreadsheets or any schedule? Do you brainstorm and come up with five, over an hour for the next 2 weeks, or do you just do it sporadically?
Yeah, in generally, I agree with this notion. Like, once upon a time, I'm like an investor. I think it was always on the seed, so far seed or proceed. I'm kind of like trying to stop doing that because yeah, it does take time, and actually relates to what I'm trying to tell you, that when an investor, like at least in the beginning after I invested, I kind of like to spend with the teams that, and like help them, that otherwise they don't need, probably they don't need the money, more of like the consulting, and something that you notice is that sometimes it's easier for a founder or a team to schedule an hour to work with someone rather scheduling an hour to think about something, because that hour is usually the first one that you schedule with yourself to think about something will be taken by yourself or someone else to do something that is urgent and important. But that hour that you schedule with someone, from some psychology reason, you won't. And then like actually that the favor that you can do with your founders is like thinking with them about stuff that it's very important, but they don't have the time to think about. And then they're actually very grateful that it's happening. You kind of force them to do that. But actually, interestingly, I'm almost like a mirror in that meeting, in those meetings. If they would schedule and do that themselves, that won't be a problem. But the fact that I'm there and they won't miss the meeting, they won't cancel it because I'm there. And now, finally, relating to what you said, yes, it does help to find a way that will make you not give up on doing this week post, because the first thing is easy because, like we said, it's embarrassing, it's etc. So yeah, one way is like you mentioned, the scheduling stuff, but I don't find it actually that the fact that I schedule to do this week and that next week, etc. I don't find it actually forcing me to do that, while appointing with someone that will help me take the video. So I don't need to do the selfie. Someone that will take the video, or someone that will help me to do the cuts or something like that. That actually does force me to be consistent. So I think like the tip here is not the specific thing. You need to think what works for you. That look at other tasks. What works for you that makes you not cancel stuff or override them, and do that. For me, it's one thing. For other people, it could be something else.
It reminds me when I was a student in computer science, I was such a bad student, and I don't know how much I was connecting with the degree also. So it was very hard for me to focus and do my homework. So what I would do is go in the library or where the students would study, and I would just nag everyone and try to create discussions around the homework to make it interesting for me, because I just couldn't sit down and do it alone. So I found my way to prep for homework and for tests.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so we're coming to an end now. Any last tips that you would like to give founders?
Yes. I think what could help is take a look on a few like influencers or people that you just like follow already or you want to follow. Like spend like 10-20 minutes and try to take a look if there are patterns and what they're doing and the patterns that you like that they're doing because they all have patterns because otherwise they couldn't be consistent and try to learn these patterns and you might find that some of these patterns actually work for you. I shared a few things, but the trick is that you need to understand what are your blockers and then finding those patterns that will unblock these blockers. So that's my suggestion. Like it yes, there are people that that happens more naturally for them, but I claim that even those people are actually like investing effort and finding ways to make it easier for them to share high quality content that matters for them and for their audience. And so I think eventually, like we do bring professionals as founders for we do need to bring professionals that are more knowledgeable than us in everything in sales and finance and marketing and business and engineering and everything. But eventually there on some topics we can avoid like learning and being a mini expert ourselves and my suggestion is that thought leadership and being thoughtful about your market and your topics, etc. It's not something you should try to avoid. It's like it's not the right thing to do. So my suggestion is like find those patterns and processes that will enable you doing that. Yeah, that's it.
I completely agree. How can people reach out to you and learn about Codium?
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to be out there and on LinkedIn and X, Twitter, Itamar Friedman, or sometimes Itamar Mar. Don't ask me, like we don't have the time to go over why I did that, like when I was 16. Um, and Codium is also very easy. Codium dot AI. Um, Codium AI. You'll find us. Our website is quite descriptive, and from there it's easy to download or free. And if you want actually more related to this topic is and like not necessarily going to our website, but actually going to our LinkedIn profile, Codium AI on LinkedIn and Codium AI and on X, and follow and look at there what we're trying to do there, because eventually it's a tandem between the founders and the company, like doing the marketing. And by the way, take a look on everyone that you can think of. You'll find a lot of these tandems. Like I'll go for the Apple and Microsoft and Facebook, Meta, etc. But I think like many other companies, it's not the only way to do. Okay, it's not a must, but it's just probably one of those ways that are possible to reach success in brand awareness, marketing, etc.
Thanks so much, Itamar. It was a pleasure.
Same here. Thank you.